Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome back to Adventure Capital, where we not only discuss the entrepreneurial journeys and adventures with founders who have raised capital on Wefunder, but also the different resource providers and mentors helping founders along the way. Huzzah! In this interview, we chat with my main man and leader of the Venture Squad, Adie Akuffo-Afful, and he'll be breaking down his vision and process. This is the guy we can all learn a thing or two from. Before we get on with the podcast, we're required to let everyone know that anything we say here should not be interpreted as investment advice, recommendations, or soliciting investments in any company. All companies raising on Wefunder are given an equal opportunity to participate in the podcast based on the progress of their campaign. Wefunder gang, take it away.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Adventure Capital. I am beyond stoked for this episode because we have one of Wefunder's very own, Adie Akuffo-Afful, leading the Venture Partners program at Wefunder and like 8 million other things for us. Adie, welcome to the pod.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Adie. Super happy to be here and super stoked to be answering all your questions on everything Venture Partners and Wefunder.
We've got some heavy hitters queued up for you, so get ready.
Love it. And I'm excited for this. I want to tell you, Adie, you don't know this yet, but I asked, we were like sitting at the bar last night after our event here in Nashville, summer day in Nashville, and like I asked people, okay, if you were to take the different, like the best attributes of different people on the team at Wefunder and choose, you know, like the organization of Suze and like the product genius of Nick and the coding ability of Greg to make like the perfect Wefunder employee, like how would you do it? And Reed was just like, I would just take everything from Adie.
I love it, man. I thought it was going to be like my eyebrows or something awesome.
Well, everything includes your eyebrows. But yeah, for everyone listening, this is who we're talking to today.
On the phone with a founder. I think I posted this in Slack, but I was on the phone with a founder a couple weeks ago, and he knew you from Venture Partners or something. And literally, I go to kind of give him an intro of Wefunder and how this works. And he was like, well, I know Adie, so I already know everything there is to know. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay, goodbye. Like, you definitely do. Because you just, hearing you on the phone, first of all, but also, like, you just got your hand in so many cookie jars, if that's a saying.
It definitely is. It definitely is. And thank you guys so much for the compliments. You guys know how much I love compliments. So,
as Adie nervously laughs in his apartment.
Well, Adie, just to talk more about you for a second, which you know you love doing so much. Give us your background. How did you come to be running Venture Partners at Wefunder?
Absolutely. So I'll take a little bit step back in terms of when I first started, right? So before Wefunder, I was working for a company called Circle Optics. Circle Optics was mostly into the 360-degree camera system space, around basically doing it for more VR concepts, but I ended up telling them to switch over to going towards military. So I was helping them raising funding during that time. Ended up doing mostly SBIR grants. We were able to raise around $4.5 million during that time. And then Wefunder came to town, right? So a few members of the RIT's Center of Urban Entrepreneurship were thinking about being a part of this program called the Venture Partners program over at some small company at that point in time called Wefunder in San Francisco. And I was like, hold on, what is this whole program about? They're like, oh, well, it's about funding and basically helping on the ground in smaller locations that don't have access to that much funding or just alternative funding in general. So we applied, we created a video or something like that. And a couple months later, all of a sudden it's like, hey, look, you got accepted. Come to like SF. And I was like, hold up, this is going to be super awesome. I've never been to SF in my life. And I have no idea what this company does. I don't know how they're going to be able to beat out any single like traditional sense of funding from like angels or VCs, but let's go ahead and hear them out. And then it came to be. I ended up coming over to Wefunder, learning about the program. I think we talked earlier about individuals doing planks in the middle of the workday, which was kind of crazy to me at that point in time. I was like, is this what San Francisco is all about? It's just random planks and people like working all day and partying all night. Absolutely loved it. So much so that, a couple months later, Jonny and Gotti reached out to me, which were the two individuals I'd met during this time there, reached out to me and said, hey, look, we're starting this program called City Partners, where you can go ahead and travel to a different city and try to build up Wefunder's reputation there. And I was like, oh, that sounds super awesome. How can I be a part of that? I think at that point in time, I was in between either Denver or Austin. And I had chose Austin at that time. And then a couple of weeks later, after I got the acceptance, the pandemic hit, and Johnny's like, guess what? You're coming full time. You're going in-house now. And you're going to be doing inbound instead of doing anything else. And I loved it. It was like the best start ever to basically being a part of Wefunder. Got to meet some really cool folks like Kieran, who I have to say was probably one of the best educators when I first jumped in. He was just like, dude, every single thing with Kieran, just be like you had to have it. I don't think he's ever rated a company a 5 ever. And so it was like learning from him not to rate companies 5s was great. Oh, snap. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun learning from him, and then kind of seeing how Wefunder's grown and getting to this new role.
I love that. How interesting that Jonny also swindled me into an inbound role when I started at Wefunder.
It's the best way to go. It's like, Jonny, go ahead.
My plan, it's my recruiting plan, just trick everyone into joining the Wefunder team.
But I was like, inbound was like the biggest learning point. There's so many companies that come at you. You have to learn really fast and adapt to it. And then at the same time, you get to see them through the entire process. And so it's like being that first face or the first voice individuals here definitely helps out, especially when it's coming to like learning about the process, where it's like, hey, we're both learning right now.
I agree. I really like hearing your take on it, because I remember the initial cohort of venture partners and everybody kind of being squeezed in our office house situation in San Francisco back in like 2018. And super cool that you kind of stuck around and joined full time. And obviously the program has really evolved quite a bit from then. So can you get us up to speed? What is Venture Partners in its current iteration?
Absolutely. So the program has definitely changed since I first joined. I think at first we had gone through trying to target different cities, smaller cities that didn't have that much funding there, and then kind of being that funding source. But I think we saw some changes, right? So I think during that time we had Alaska, Detroit, I believe Louisville, Rochester, and Salem, North Carolina, who had joined that initial cohort, and seeing that, hey, look, in terms of providing funding for a lot of these regions, it was very hard for an individual who was not really into that space in terms of like truly being like a funding source to be able to like help those companies raise. Because again, it was more or less, there was still stigmas behind equity crowdfunding at this point in time, now known as community rounds. Pretty much a lot of individuals were like, I'd rather go traditional route, because again, that was what they'd always known, basically reaching out to angels, reaching out to VCs. And so it was much harder during that time. I think the results we saw there was individuals like the folks over in Louisville, Access Ventures, and also their partner or their subgroup, Render Capital, that if you had capital, they were able to provide to a lot of these companies, and in terms of like a matching grant or something associated with them raising capital, they would take that next step to try this route of saying, hey, look, if I can raise 20K and you guys would match me 20K, that can help me get through like our initial amount of funding that can actually test out the product, right? Same thing went for Alaska a little bit later on, but it was, hey, look, if you can go ahead and do a matching grant that can actually provide like the initial, like it'll like reduce the hindrance or the barriers associated with raising capital by saying, if you were to raise half of the round you're looking for from your community of folks who believe in you, we'll go ahead and match it because we also believe in you. That is huge. And so I think the change here is we stopped going from more of a traditional sense of like, hey, look, there is a stigma behind community rounds or equity crowdfunding at that point in time, to now it's like, hey, we're actually working alongside a lot of individuals who are looking to possibly help you raise capital through community rounds, and they can go ahead and match that. And not only that, there's no longer a massive stigma. I mean, there's still folks that are still like, making their way, but there's no longer a massive stigma around like community rounds, right? It's done through an SPV. And then from there, you can go ahead and reach out to these individuals that may have matching grants associated with it. And now you just have to convince your basic, your community to invest in you, get the matching grant, and then be able to possibly reach out to VCs as well during your round. So I think it's just opened a lot of barriers close a lot of barriers that were once there. And in terms of the change now, we're going global, right? So I think at first we had usually just stuck to the US and trying to tackle a lot of the stuff that was happening in the US, but now I'm like, let's go global. The fact that community rounds are being seen, or like a huge announcement that was just made the other day around the new change around that word and sort of equity crowdfunding to community rounds, I think is now going to lead to a lot of individuals wanting to do so in different areas of the world, right? So finding individuals who are key players in those ecosystems, it can be podcasters, it can be like early stage associates at venture firms, it could be folks who are just like, hey, look, I have money and I want to invest into my community and see some startups go. Like, this is the perfect opportunity to, one, work alongside them, then provide them a platform for them to be able to actually to invest into the companies in their ecosystems, at the same time benefit from the Wefunder community in terms of the venture partners by possibly like communicating or learning from individuals who are a little bit higher up in the like, just in their career and around like, investing. At the same time, also find different ways of like, sharing deal flow at the end of the day, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's not only this thing now, it's just based in the US, but the more we expand this program and work alongside all these key individuals in their own ecosystems, we're able to see a change there where it's like, hey, I actually know someone in the US. If you're looking to expand, since we've already invested in you now, let me connect you over to them. And I think that's the huge benefit we see with this new program.
I'm really curious what like a typical kind of venture, there isn't really a typical venture fund. There's such a like diversity of backgrounds, which is so cool. So maybe a better way to get at that question is like, just go through some of like who our venture partners are, and like just tell us about, who they are, what they do, how you connected.
Absolutely. So I would say a few of my favorites, right? Everyone's my favorite, but a few of my favorites could be one, Izzy, right? So Izzy Lugo is an individual based out of Milwaukee. He basically had a podcast that was around more urban branding and urban brands like clothes, all the way to individuals who were doing startups that were focused on like trading shoes and so on, right? So Izzy, when I first spoke with him, he was working at this organization called Help Scout as one of their content guys. During that time, Izzy was basically on the side working on his podcast, talking to a lot of founders who were basically focused on that urban aspect of like, the industry. And the moment I was like, hey, Izzy, I had this opportunity for you to basically like, learn about investing into companies and possibly become a lead investor in these companies, things changed, right? So he was able to go ahead and say like, this, I can definitely see a way through this becoming a lead investor and possibly even growing my wealth in terms of like, I forgot what that word, legacy, right? So legacy wealth, right? So it's like, hey, look, I can come in, invest in this company, become the lead investor in this company. And then from there, one day, if they do scale, like I can go ahead and possibly have enough funding at that point in time to actually help out in terms of their SPV round if they were to do like act on the pro rata rights associated with me being the lead, and then get carry on top of that. Like, so for him, he saw like the branch, right? He's like, oh man, this is the only way I could ever be able to get into this space. And once I get in, I'm going to make sure I'm going to fight my way through this to basically make sure I'm always going to succeed. I think he did one post. I think he was the first one to do the earliest post because I was like, it's going on Monday. Don't post. That same Saturday, Izzy was like, I'm posting it, right? And so when he posted it, the amount of individuals that backed him was insane. It was like, I think like 200 people on Twitter were like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. Fantastic Izzy. He's like, I'm not the traditional type of person that would ever go into VC. Like, I'm someone that is mostly in marketing and I'm very early stage associated with this. But now I'm able to do so. And I think a lot of individuals in his network saw the opportunity of like, hey, I can also go ahead and
awesome.
companies, right? And of course, you know, our second favorite, Janine Swat of Miami. Like, luckily enough, hey, if I think today is April 8th, if this is gonna go out before like April 19th, like we're doing something in Miami with Janine, so everyone come and check that out. But she's one of my favorites. Was a super connector in Miami. At first wanted to jump into the space of around like investing. I think at that point in time, she hadn't invested in any single companies, but she had done a few startups of her own. And individuals just knew her so well in Miami. And so she was able to go ahead and say, hey, I can actually tap into my network of founders who are just like, hey, look, I want to learn more about how I can like have my friends and family to invest in my round. I want to learn more about, you know, basically getting the community to back me. And she was able to be that like resource in Miami locally who actually learned about the entire process of how Wefunder operates and how basically to run a community round, go there and be that point person for a lot of companies. And so I think we've seen some success with a few of her companies she sent over. One of my favorites there in Miami is going to be Zing, basically a drone company that's also been backed by the city and the mayor. So it's been crazy to see the kind of volume that's come out from just Miami, just because we're able to give someone the power to reach out to their community and see if they want to raise within their community.
Awesome. Yeah, I've met Janine. I haven't met Izzy yet, but Janine's awesome. She's super cool. So yeah, let me just give you the bulleted list that I've collected in my brain from that rundown. So a venture partner is somebody who's kind of already plugged into their community. They're already helping founders and startups succeed, but they don't necessarily have like an investment arm associated with it yet. So by being partnered with Wefunder, they get access to help the company launch on Wefunder. They can decide if they want to be the initial lead investor for as little as $1,000. And then they're helping the company break into their community locally and then also get more visibility from the Wefunder community.
Absolutely.
Sweet. Adie, hire me to work on Venture Partners.
New marketing director for the Venture Partners program.
I love it. But yeah, no, I guess I just wanted to lead into my next question with that, because we also have something called Venture Scouts at Wefunder. What is the difference between the two initiatives?
Absolutely. So I would say one of the key differences between the two is that usually for venture scouts is individuals who are either well known into their industry, however, they don't want to invest into the companies on the platform, right? So individuals who are looking at probably earlier stage all the way to maybe late stage of like principals and companies, or just starting out wanting to jump into the VC space. And so the way they're able to do that is by scouting companies and sending them over. So these individuals are just wanting to learn about just being in the startup space, and basically they see deal flow and they send them over to Wefunder, and they kind of help out in that aspect of wanting to learn more about how to become a VC, or wanting to learn more about just startups and venture capital and investing in general. For the venture partner side of things, yes, there's a mentorship aspect of it as well, and also individuals wanting to learn more about how to become a better angel investor, but the majority of them are looking to invest into startups. And so that's one of the biggest differences here, is that these individuals want to invest into the companies at their earliest stage. They want to become that value add, where it's not only are they sending them over to different VCs, but it's like, hey, I want to actually have an active role in your company, and so I'm investing and wanting to lead it in order to help and advise you growth.
Love it.
When I was at Kiva, we had this fellowship program, and so people would do Kiva fellowships around the US. And this program went through like, I don't know, 6 or 7 iterations, and every iteration there was like a new lesson we learned, and we iterated and then tried it and learned a new thing and iterated again. And I feel like the Venture Partners program at Wefunder now has gone through a few iterations. What are some of the lessons that you've learned over the last, couple of years? And it's crazy. I guess you've been around for around 3 years now.
2 years now. I know it feels like 3. It really does.
But you were a venture partner, a city partner, kind of. It was like 2019, was it?
Yeah, August 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like, what are some of the lessons you've learned over the last 2 or 3 years in terms of how to build a venture partners program here that is growing and thriving and sustainable and engaging these brilliant people that we're so stoked to have in our community?
Absolutely. I'd say the first one is definitely the education piece, right? So being able to be absolutely transparent with them in terms of like, hey, this is what it takes to actually raise a round on Wefunder. This is what you should be telling the individuals who are looking to raise a round on Wefunder in order for them to basically be up there. And then also kind of updating them on that too, right? So I think that's one of the biggest changes. Is just like, hey, look, if we ever any additional information, let's go ahead and make sure that you're able to learn this right away. Two is that they can invest, right? So I think one of the biggest ones beforehand, it wasn't like the investment aspect. It was just like, okay, let's go ahead and like help out in the city. Let's go ahead and be more of like a service provider at the end of the day, where it's like, hey, look, you come in here, I'll help you with everything. This is what you need. But it wasn't really into a spec like where I can be a lead investor and actually like, possibly get that carry at the end of the day. And so that's also been a massive change into like what we're looking to do here, right? And I think lastly is just building up on that community. I think it was always weird in the very beginning, because it was like, yes, we had that community when we were there, but we never after we were there, we never really like reached out to one another during the entire time, right? And so I think the biggest change is we're trying to make sure there's more touch points associated with those conversations with individuals. Like back when the first iteration of the venture partners, I would always be in touch with Gotti. I'd always be in touch with the team at Wefunder, and pretty much just working alongside them in anything that was happening in Rochester and saying, hey, this is what's currently happening. Here's the current status. But I think having individuals within the program actually having conversations with one another is huge, because again, it's that learning point. The more touch points we have with these individuals, whether it's Wefunder reaching out to them, or whether it's individuals in the organization reaching out to one another and having those conversations, it just builds a better program. And so I think that's some of the changes I've definitely seen, or some of the ones I've taken in from like what was originally there during our first iteration of this, and now just wanting to like redevelop and like hammer down.
It's so cool that like you're running this program having been in the first iteration of it. Right? On both sides. It actually like it makes you even better at running the program because you've been through it.
I'd hope.
Oh, for sure.
We know.
Yeah. It has been really cool to watch it grow and change. Can you share with us on this exclusive interview? What is the sort of long-term vision in your eyes for venture partners, and what's next for the program?
Adventure Capital exclusive.
Exactly. Yeah, I was like, I don't know what to share, right? I'm like,
you heard it here first.
I mean, overall, I think it'd be really cool to like build out a program where it's very similar to like Chief, right? So like the network with individuals, or like even Revenue Collective, where we're able to have so many venture partners all over the globe just wanting to like exchange deal flow at the same time, but also having events on the ground where it's like, hey, look, you're a venture partner. Like, hey, look, this is an event for you. We have like 30 people in your city. Go ahead and invite them out. Let's have a dinner. Let's go ahead and build up more relationships between you and the ecosystem. Let's have you guys as key players, where if there's ever like a community round festival, you guys are speaking on behalf of it based upon your industry, and this is your knowledge. And it's just like, I think at the end of the day, like my main goal is almost have like every single person be so like stoked about being a venture partner that they put it like first on their LinkedIn. It's like, oh yeah, I'm the head of like, head of this thing over at this company, but forget that, like I'm part of the venture partner group, over at Wefunder. And so overall, it's just building out like a massive community of folks who are just so diehard about helping out their ecosystems that, we're having different events, different clubs, having educational pieces, having workshops, having, just everything possible under the sun when it comes to like being a part of that ecosystem. And maybe one day they have their own fund, right? And we can go ahead and co-invest alongside them, possibly having their own syndicate group in their cities where they're able to go ahead and like, any single time a deal comes in, they can get their whole city behind it and be like, hey, look, this company wants to raise capital, boom, put them onto the platform. And then from there, like the whole city basically gets like an email blast saying, hey, look, there's these startups in your community, you can invest in them. Like that'd be super dope.
We were sitting at lunch today, and Classic, we were talking about Nashville and like Founders Rising Nashville, and Classic came up with this line, your city is the VC, which I just thought was so cool.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
I love that too. Wow.
Adie, we're kind of hearing it on this call, like your energy is insane. Like you're so brilliant. The amount of stuff that you do, as Kapow alluded to right at the start, is just, it makes me feel really sad about my own incompetence and inadequacy. I just look at how much stuff you're doing. I'm like, I really should work harder.
Jonny is the biggest fan in the world. Yeah.
You can hear Adie Slack just like boop 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 boop
yeah,
during this
right.
call. Like such a busy man.
But seriously, I feel like you just are this like incredible ball of energy. You work so hard. You also seem to have a lot of fun. You like you're always like, oh yeah, I was out partying with this person last night, and somehow you do an awesome job of like fusing the work and the partying sides
Work
of life.
hard, play hard.
Work hard, play hard. But I guess my question is getting at what drives you, because yeah, you work super hard. Like yeah, what kind of drives you to work hard in kind of building this program and Wefunder and this industry?
Absolutely. I think it's gonna be a little bit cliche here. I think that's probably the word, but I would say it was definitely like my upbringing in terms of like how like my parents were, right? So in terms of like my background, yeah, my parents were divorced, all that kind of fun stuff. But growing up, I would be in Ghana, and during that time in Ghana, my mom was probably the hardest worker I knew. Like this woman would be like out there just hustling at all times, right? She'd be like, hey, look, we're going to be renting out these houses over here. We're going to be going to do these textile things over here. And I'm just in the car with my sister, like, all right, cool, we're just going along. But like, I growing up in that space, not only from seeing her, but seeing my grandma, seeing my aunts always just moving. And then at the same time, being around so many other people that were doing that too. Like, I think every single person in Ghana that I knew had a business. I'm talking about even the folks on the streets, they had their own business. They were selling, they were trading, they were doing all of this, right? And so seeing that and growing up around that, where it's like everyone is basically just hustling, not just hustling just to hustle, but it's just like hustling because they want to bring something better into the world, or hustling because they had like an initiative where it's like, hey, I have to feed my family, but not only that, I want to find a way to kind of grow my business so that it works for me.
I love that. I've got a question for you. Who hustles harder, you or your mom?
I have to say my mom. I don't think I could ever light up. I can't put a match or a candle close to her whatsoever. She's still hustling till this day. Like,
and would your mom like to come work at Wefunder?
Yeah, I was like,
you hire your mom? Oh my god.
Yeah. I was like, Mom, like, you retired? She's like, yeah, kinda. Like, that's how she is. But yeah, my mom all day.
Adie, I love that. I didn't know you were a little like a mama's boy. You're so.
I'm a straight up mama's boy, man. I just grew up around all women. That was the craziest part. Like, I was just like the only dude, so it was just like, hey, like seeing everyone just always hustle. I'm like, all right, I got to do this as well. Like, it has to happen. Yeah, I'm a straight up mama's boy, unfortunately, but also.
No, fortunately, your mom sounds awesome. I want to meet her. That's absolutely amazing.
When you're in England, when you're in the EU, so
perfect. This is sort of piggybacking off of Jonny's question, but the venture partners is obviously like so integrated into Wefunder, and a lot of the mission is aligned with what Wefunder is trying to build and community around and everything. So I'm curious, along with what drives you, what is your favorite part about working at Wefunder?
Jeez, I don't think there's just one thing. I really don't. It's kind of
it's two things, and they are Jonny and Kapow.
Yeah, and they're on this call right now. But no, I would say definitely that, right? It's definitely the team around here. I think again, it's always that same, for some odd reason, I think it ties back to, what drives me in general, right? It's the fact that when I'm like working with you guys, especially if I'm in person with you guys, it's like, man, you guys are hustling, you guys are running around, you guys are doing this. I also need that energy, and I need to go ahead and do that too. Like, this is a full team effort. And so I think that's one of my biggest drivers. It's just the fact that you guys, everyone is already aligned with that mission and trying to push it forward to make the company as value add as possible, and just keep on growing. And the thing is, sometimes we don't actually have, I think one of the biggest things is like, we don't know what each person's working on at times, but we just know that it's like a value add, right? So it's like, I trust you to be a value add for this organization. And so when I see you hustling, and I want to hustle too, I don't know what I'm going to be doing at times, but at the same time, I'm like, I just know if we're able to kind of like just say, hey, look, I need you to be just at your best, I'm going to follow that. And so I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I truly love Wefunder, is just like, hey, look, everyone's at their best and pushing for just to make sure the company keeps like striving and hitting all those metrics. Let's go ahead and keep pushing that. And that's pretty much it. Like, I would say it's definitely the team and that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Okay. We're going to institute a new tradition here, with the launch of community rounds. communityround.com.
Which company do you want? I see where it's going.
Seriously, that's the question. Which maybe it's your favorite brewery in Austin, maybe it's like a cool startup that you've been following.
Please say the one that I'm thinking.
No, you can't lead the witness.
I don't know.
I'm trying to telepathically send this
favorite
to you.
Kapow, stop it. No kind of clues here. Favorite startup that you want to launch a community around on Wefunder?
That's in Austin?
No, it doesn't need to be in Austin.
I mean, I don't think it's going to agree with the Kapow's one, but I'm not going to lie. Notion would be a freaking no one. I would see love for Notion to raise.
You love Notion. Your use of Notion.
Canva. I'd be those two. It'd be Notion and Canva. Like, I think.
Oh yeah, Adie is nasty on Canva.
I love Canva. I remember back in the days, I think no one was using Canva on the team, but I was like, you guys got to go into Canva. This is the best. Like you guys are missing out. And I think now almost like the majority of people are using Canva for their development. But if it was on the ground in Austin, I would have to say Houndstooth for me would be a super dope one to have. I mean, they're just a coffee spot, but it's like absolutely amazing because there's so much that goes on in that coffee spot. They have so many locations and they have a massive fan base at the end of the day that is here. And so I think, especially for me, I literally go there every single day to one location or another. That'd be amazing. Oh, and an additional one just to be, I want all the companies. Awesome FC. That'd be really cool.
Is that soccer team?
Yeah, I want to call them out. I'm gonna say it like.
Let's get these petitions going.
Yeah, Austin FC would be the craziest one because it'd just be like it'd be done. Like everyone that goes to the game is already paying those prices. Like done. That'd be the craziest part. I love it. Austin FC, if you're hearing this, I'm calling you out. Yeah.
Love a good soccer team raise.
Absolutely.
Well, one last question. We asked this for everyone. You've interacted with hundreds of founders over the last few years in working at Wefunder and with venture partners, running venture partners. What's one piece of advice that you would have for a founder who's listening?
I'd say in terms of running a campaign, take the time to think through your campaign strategy. Right. I think a lot of individuals jump onto the platform thinking, hey, look, I only have to raise this certain amount and it gets blasted all to your network and I'm going to raise $1 million. No. Like, I think one of the biggest things is like, if you're able to develop your campaign strategy where it's like, hey, you have all your marketing collateral done. Hey, you've already done your research and reached out to your network. You've seen like, you've hit up like the primary bucket, the secondary bucket, your customer base. You've done all that strategy. And then at that point in time, it's like, let's go ahead and test it out. And I think that the craziest part is the new community rounds platform is able to go ahead and allow you to basically send out the petition to your to your consumer base, to your friends, family, customers, everyone, in order to see whether there's actually interest there. And once you're actually able to see that on the platform and be like, okay, I should go ahead and make the next step associated with it. This is the way to do so. But it's going to be two-sided. It's going to be that plus also making sure that you've built out your strategy for success, right? And then from there, once you build out that strategy, act on that. Adapt it a few times to make sure that's like the framework in which you're going with. So that's just like, some advice there. Yeah,
love it.
Yeah.
Adie,
and one last shout out. Ithaca Hummus, if you're hearing this, come and raise on the platform.
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
That's the one you were thinking?
Yeah, Adie and I have been trying to get the attention of Ithaca Hummus for literally years, like since he lived in Rochester, because it's the best hummus of all time. I do eat it with a spoon. I'm not ashamed to say it. And they have the most, like, Jonny's face.
Jonny's like, with a spoon, really?
Yeah. They have the best branding, best community. They would crush it. I would invest. I'd be a hummus owner.
100%.
Yeah.
We have to send this to Chris and Frank. Frank, come on, man, do your magic. But yeah.
All right. On that note, we'll let you go answer all of your Slack messages. But Adie, it was so great to have you. This was fun. Thank you so much. Keep doing
Adie,
what you're doing.
You are the man.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again. Love it. Bye.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of Venture Capital. I hope you laughed, took notes, shed a tear, and most importantly, feel ready to go off on your own adventure. And remember, whenever you're ready, Wefunder's here to help. Be sure to like and leave a review, gang.